like this and want more, then check out the Jacob Anders Review YouTube channel, where you can also find movie reviews every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. You can also listen to the entire podcast on all major podcasting platforms such as Spotify, Google, and iTunes. So if you prefer audio, whichever one is your preferred, check it out there. Once again, I really appreciate it, and thanks for watching. And as always, stay sexy, YouTube. Welcome to episode 12 of the JARcast movie podcast. This week on the show, we're looking at some surprising cancellations, a supposed amazing cut of a bad movie, post-credit scenes, Thundercats, Russian cosmonauts, and more right here on the JARcast. So jumping right into it this week, we got a little story about our movie Lord and Savior James Cameron. And apparently he had to threaten to fire the writers of the Avatar sequels. The story goes as, in a recent episode of Marianne Williamson podcast, James Cameron talked about the process that he went through to craft the stories for the upcoming Avatar sequels. And while you might just assume Cameron locked himself in a room and pounded out scripts for the sequels based on ideas he already had in his head, that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, the process was much more detailed and precise. You know how people joke about Marvel Studios films have a formula? Well, you couldn't make a better case that James Cameron hired a bunch of people to crack the code for Avatar. When I sat down to write the sequels, I knew there were going to be 3 at the time, and eventually it turned into 4. I put together a group of writers and said, I don't want to hear anybody's new ideas or anyone's pitches until we have spent some time figuring out what worked on the first film, what connected and why it worked, explained Cameron. They kept wanting to talk about new stories. I said, we aren't doing that yet. Eventually, I had to threaten to fire them all because they were doing what writers do, which is try to create new stories. I said, we need to understand what the connection was and protect it. Protect that ember and that flame. The analysis of the first film went incredibly deep. Cameron and his team took the time to analyze multiple levels of the film and figure out what worked and what needed to continue on in the sequels. On the first level, they looked at the plot. The second level provided analysis of the spiritualism and the themes of capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism, human rights abuses, and nature deficit disorder. Then the third, territory level? Hereditary level? Oh, okay, yeah. Hereditary level. I can't talk this evening. Went even deeper into a dreamlike realm. I didn't have any isms to it. It didn't have any isms to it. It was a dreamlike sense of yearning to be there, to be in that space, to be in a place that is safe and where you wanted to be, he explained. Whether that was flying, that sense of freedom and exhilaration, or whether it was the forest where you can smell the earth, it was a sensory thing that communicated on such a deep level that was the spirituality of the first film. Even after all this deep thinking and brainstorming, even after figuring out all the thinking and brainstormings, even figuring out the stories wasn't simple. Cameron said, we created and rejected many storylines for the second and third film because they didn't take us to a transportive dreaming with your eyes wide open feeling. I like this. I like what he's saying here. I mean, he said a lot of stuff, but what I really read was, I'm not fucking around with these things. I'm not trying to just crank out a sequel to the highest grossing film of all time because we can make money. And that's good. He has always been a director who's always said, if the story's not there, I'm not going to make a sequel. And I've always really appreciated that about him. People could say what they will about him. They could say what they want about Avatar, but it sounds like he's not just trying to rush this thing, or he didn't try and just rush this thing. And the fact that he had to tell them, because upon initially reading the headline, I was like, he's going to fire the writers. And then, you read on, and it said, he was going to fire them because they were trying to have original stories. Like, oh shit, they're just going to have rehashes of the same shit. Oh no. But no, that's not what it was at all. He was saying we need to remember that first film and what connected with so many people. And I thought that was a great thing. I think that is awesome that he's trying to not deviate too far. Yeah, it sounds like they're going to tell some new, fresh stories, but I think it was good that he was saying we need to get back in line. We need to remember that film and what made it great and what people really connected with, and take those aspects of it and put it into the next films as well. I'm pretty sure the guy probably had the basic idea of what he wanted these sequels to be in his head, and he probably put it out there and said, here's some story beats, some basic things we're going to do. Now we need to craft stories and incorporate these things. But I have heard he's a force to be reckoned with when he gets to work in those. Some people have said he's just a raging asshole, but at the same time, those same people will say, hey, he's kind of a terror to work with, but he's such a genius and he makes such great products that it's worth it. Because while he's a terror to work with at work, after the film's done, he's a great guy. And I've also heard that in his older age, he has kind of laxed a little bit. But he is the type of guy who he has a vision and he says, this is the vision and we're going to do it. And I really appreciate that about him. I really think that that's why he really has never had a flop. And people can point to Piranha 2 all they want. That wasn't his film. He got fired after like a couple of days of shooting there. But beyond that, he's never had a universally bad movie, a movie that's universally seen as a bad movie. He's had some that did better than others, but pretty much everything he puts his hands on ends up being critically and commercially viable and very popular. Obviously, 2 of his movies are in the top 10. I think number 1, it was Avatar, and number 3 now, I think, is Titanic. I think it's still number 3. It's on up there. Or in the top 10 highest grossing films of all time. You don't become the highest grossing film of all time unless there's something going on there. And it's not by luck. I mean, I'm not saying that necessarily means it's a good movie if you're the highest grossing film of all time or in that top 10, but there's something about it that people connected with. And I think it's good that he's not leaving that behind. He's trying to remember that and say we need to stay focused on what people really connected with, because that's what you want when you go see a sequel. You want something new. You want fresh, you want to see more, but you want to see more of what you already loved, but maybe expanded upon. And that's what I take from this. I don't take that he's saying, no, we're going to do the same movie over and over. I take that we're going to do new, fresh themes, but we're going to keep that core. And I really appreciate that, him saying that. That makes me feel a bit better about these sequels. Because while I'm a huge James Cameron fan, and I really did and do enjoy Avatar, I know some people, I don't know why I just called it Avatar, but I know how some people kind of hate on Avatar. I think a lot of that is because it is so popular. But even though you can hate on Avatar all you want, I still enjoy it. And I was a bit skeptical. 1 sequel, even 2 sequels, I would have been like, okay, yeah, I see that. But 4, we're getting 4. There's going to be an Avatar 5 at some point in my lifetime. That just, I don't know. That seems like, what are you going to, I mean, it's a vast universe out there to play in, but I'm just like, what stories, do you have 4 more stories that big to tell? I mean, I guess so. He said time and time again since early in his career, I'm never going to tell a sequel unless I have an idea that I think is a good idea that needs to be told. So I guess the guy's got 4 other basic ideas that have now been expanded upon with the writing team. So, hey, there you go. I mean, sometimes you have to break people out of their mold. I get what he's saying about writers wanting to do what writers do, which is write stories. So he had to reel them in and at some point tell them, look, if you're not going to do what I'm asking you to do, it's just like any other business. If you're not going to do the job I'm asking you to do, then we're going to have to part ways. So it sounds like it works. I guess he eventually was happy with it. So I guess we'll find out. The first one comes out December 16th, 2022. So about a year and a half from now, which if last year was any indication, it'll just fly by, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If anything, that selfish side of me is hoping that at least the first sequel is a huge success and it's just a really great movie to just shut up all the naysayers, because they continuously go on and on talking shit about Avatar. But I mean, come on, it's the king, man. it's the king, baby. You can't talk too much about it. I mean, you can talk all you want, but it doesn't change the fact that Avatar is still the king. But I don't know. Are you guys excited for Avatar or Avatar 2, 3, and 4, and 5? I am, I guess. I'm excited about the second one, and then I'll take it from there because they're making all of them back to back to back. So the second one apparently is done filming, and the third one is about to be done filming. So we're getting these movies at some point in time. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more stories Pandora holds for us. So speaking of movies making a whole lot of money and just having a whole lot of money involved, apparently Ryan Johnson, I guess. I always want to say Rain for some reason, but Ryan Johnson's Knives Out sequels, yes, 2 of them, not 1, have sold or are about to sell to Netflix in a historic $400+ million deal. I think it was actually 450 finally, they said. The first sequel with Daniel Craig starts production in June. New report coming from Deadline states that Netflix is nearing a historic $400 million deal to acquire 2 yet-to-be-titled Knives Out sequels from the writer-director. If everything comes together, we'll see both Daniel Craig and Johnson return for both films, with the first sequel set to begin shooting on June 28th in Greece. Other notable suitors mentioned were Apple and Amazon. We've known about Rain's plans for a sequel for a while now, but this third film is a wonderful surprise. We're still in the dark about the plot details of these other two mysteries, however, but just their existence is good enough. The star-studded cast of the original caught the attention of audiences, and it didn't hurt. It had a great marketing campaign that led it to earning $311.4 million at the worldwide box office, with a budget of only $40 million. There are already expectations that Ryan will wrangle another impressive group of actors for the sequel, and there was a fun meme on Twitter to come up with the next title a few years back that went viral. At the same time, Johnson said to be developing this is great. At the same time, Johnson is said to be developing an original Star Wars trilogy. This is the guy who made The Last Jedi, by the way. But there hasn't been a concrete update from Lucasfilm about when they'll begin shooting those pics. While he's recently reiterated the films are coming eventually, there's still a lot of skepticism in the Star Wars community they will ever arrive, given the way Rise of Skywalker undid so much of the work of his Last Jedi. He's also teaming up with Russian doll star Natasha Lyonne for a new mystery series titled Poker Face for Peacock. Meanwhile, Daniel Craig is ending his James Bond tenure once No Time to Die is released in October, if it's actually released, and it will allow him to commit to a budding franchise like Knives Out. We could end up seeing Daniel play Benoit Blanc, I think that's how you pronounce that, whatever his character's name is in Knives Out, in other installments beyond this trilogy. I know Knives Out was huge. It was a big deal when it came out, and I saw it, and I enjoyed it. I thought Knives Out was pretty good. I didn't necessarily think it was as great as everybody else was raving about it. When I finally saw it, I was like, that's fine. It was entertaining. I wasn't really blown away by any of the stuff that happened in it. I thought it was a solid film. Interesting. I like whodunits and stuff like that. And I thought it was solid. Nothing really surprised me about it. I mean, I'm not being elitist there. I'm just saying that when I was watching it, I kind of guessed a lot of the things that were happening. But it was a fun film, and there was lots of talent. And Daniel Craig, I thought, was really entertaining in it. But is this going to turn into like a Jacques Cousteau kind of thing? Is this guy just going to go around solving all these different characters? I mean, or different mysteries and stuff? Murders, I assume? Because how do you make a sequel? I mean, is it a sequel as far as like not necessarily a sequel for those characters, just his character? It sounds like. I think it is going to be kind of like that, kind of like a Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile or whatever it is. That whole series, like I forget, Agatha Christie, I think. Is this like a new version of that and his version? And they're making two of them apparently. So, I mean, great, I guess. I mean, I can't really say I'm super hyped about it. I know a lot of people probably are excited because this movie was very, very popular for people, and people really enjoyed the original Knives Out. So maybe this one will do gangbusters too. But apparently, it's going to go to Netflix, FYI. So you won't have to leave the house to see it whenever it does eventually come out. It says it's shooting in June, I believe it was June 6th in Greece. So they're clearly not going to be, or June 28th in Greece. It's clearly not going to be set in the American South like the other one was. And this character is going to be going abroad, I assume. I don't know why you would go to Greece to portray somewhere here in America. Who knows? But yeah, as they said, nobody knows what the hell it's going to be about. And they'll probably keep it that way. That's kind of the whole, goes along with the whole mystery thing. You don't really want to give away too much of what your film's about if it's a mystery before it comes out. So I would assume if it's shooting in June 28th, probably a couple to a few months shoot. Maybe we'll get a trailer around this time next year. Maybe a yearish from now, we might get a trailer and probably a release maybe next summer, if I had to guess. Maybe quicker. I mean, Netflix is kind of they move their stuff along pretty quick. They get their projects going pretty quickly. I've noticed when they really want them to. And if they spent $450 million, actually, I saw in another report. They spent $450 million on this thing. Yeah, they're going to want to get it off the ground and moving quick, and that's probably what they're going to do. I'm sure it'll be successful for them. It'll probably bring some people in. As far as that Star Wars stuff it was talking about, I'll believe that when I see it. I didn't have as much of a problem with The Last Jedi as a lot of people did, especially when you compare it to The Rise of Skywalker. But yeah, I know that a lot of people dislike that film. It's a very divisive film, and I would be surprised if they actually gave him a whole trilogy to do. That was the original plan, I know, but, shit changed. But that one, we'll see. That was just kind of like an add-on for this story here. So I'm looking forward to it, I suppose. I mean, especially if it's on Netflix, I'll watch it. I mean, don't have to leave my house. I can just watch it on my TV. So I'll definitely check that out, and we'll see where Knives Out goes from here. So if you're a big Knives Out fan, which I know a lot of you are, then you should be happy probably around a yearish from now, give or take, when it will be debuting on Netflix. I'm assuming, don't hold me to that date, but I assume probably about a year from now, we'll be getting that sequel. Now, while Netflix is bringing us some new stuff left and right, somebody who's not and actually canceling stuff that was already in development would be DC and Warner Brothers, with their New Gods and Aquaman spinoff The Trench have officially been canceled, at least for the moment, by Warner Brothers. THR has the scoop that New Gods and The Trench have been canceled by Warner Brothers as part of our DC slate. Some legacy development titles, including The New Gods and The Trench, will not be moving forward, Warner Brothers and DC said. We thank our partners Ava DuVernay, Tom King, James Wan, and Peter Safran for their time and collaboration during this process, and look forward to our continued partnership with them on other DC stories. The projects will remain in their skillful hands if they are to move forward in the future. New Gods is based on a comic by legendary comic creator Jack Kirby, who's going to be directed by Ava DuVernay, while The Trench was a horror movie set in the world of Aquaman, featuring the monstrous creatures first spotted in James Wan's film in 2018. Wan was going to produce with the script by Noah Gardner and Aidan Fitzgerald. The reasoning behind these cancellations with New Gods, WB seems to be concerned about bringing back villain Darkseid, who was just seen in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And as for The Trench, sources say that the upcoming Aquaman sequel was considered enough. I mean, they got some other stuff they go into here, talking about, they're still wanting to have a shared cinematic universe. They're still trying to do that, which they actually did. They had that going with Zack Snyder's, Man of Steel, BVS, and Justice League, Wonder Woman, all that. But they're wiping all that clear with Flash. They're really putting a lot on this Flash movie. They expect it to, in their words, lend clarity to the future of the Justice League. And I don't get it. They have like some grudge against the Zack Snyder verse or whatever, and they just don't want to continue anything that is connected to it whatsoever. And that's what I think was going on here. And the whole thing, their reasoning behind canceling this New Gods film, because I guess Darkseid was going to be in that, possibly, or something like that, or he's going to be the villain, and they're trying to distance themselves from that so they can have Darkseid, because they have another film coming out that's going to have Darkseid in it at some point, and they're trying to put distance between that film and Zack Snyder's Justice League, because they just refuse to, go forward with that, even though a whole lot of people have been clamoring for it. I'll tell you what, and one could say, how many people are actually asking for it? And that's true. You hear the vocal minority saying, we want the Snyderverse to continue. And that's fine if you say, well, it's not really as many people as you think. Okay, no problem. If you look at the reverse side of that, though, how many people are asking for a different DC universe? You got a lot of people saying that they want this DC universe. If you had like a shit ton of people over here saying, no, we want a new, fresh DC universe, and it was outweighing, I would be like, okay, I kind of get it, because the fans are crying out for that. But you don't. You just have this one side saying, no, we like what we had, or we at least like where it finally ended up going. We want more of that. And then on the other side, you got crickets. Nobody really gives a shit. They're like, I don't, shared universe or not, whatever. Just give us some Batman, stuff like that, whatever. So why not go with these guys who are saying, hey, we'll give you money? I don't get it. But anyway, these two movies, I don't really know much about them. The James Wan one, the Trench, I don't know what they would have done with that. It was not going to have Aquaman in it. It was going to be based on that trench area where he went. I think that's where he went and got the trident in Aquaman, where all those monsters were coming up and attacking him. I don't know if it's like a Mariana Trench kind of thing. There's all kinds of creatures and stuff down there. It was going to be a horror movie. So I think that could have been pretty cool, depending on what way they went. And James Wan definitely knows horror. The guy's behind like The Conjuring and all those movies, the Conjureverse or Conjuringverse, whatever it is. He knows how to do horror. I don't know if he was going to be directing it, but he was involved. So I would think that him lending his name to it meant that there was something there. There was an interesting idea there, at least. The New Gods one, I just really don't know anything about that. Nobody really knows much about it. The only thing I think we heard was that they claimed that Darkseid was going to be in that. Not a huge loss there, I guess. I don't really know much about this director, Ava DuVernay. I've heard some people say some stuff about her. I don't know. There was something connected to her at some point, good and bad. Some people were, I don't know. There's something going on with her and like something she's done or said or directed. I don't know. But either way, it just sounds like that these two movies were connected, even loosely so, to the Snyderverse, and they're just trying to wipe that all clean. And I guarantee this Flash movie now, they haven't made any movement on the Flash movie in years, but now since the Snyderverse came out and it was, the Snyder Cut came out and it was popular, they're really pushing this Flash movie forward like hardcore now, because they want to wipe the world clean. They want to wipe that universe clean of the Snyderverse. They want to restart it. And I wonder how that's going to go, man. I just don't know what tone, because we've had darker DC movies for so long. I'm just wondering what direction they're going to go, because they made a great decision there with that original cut of Justice League. That's what they wanted, was a more vibrant, happy, quippy, fun MCU DCEU. Are they going to still try and go for that, because it didn't really work out for them so hot last time? I'm just saying. But either way, if you were looking forward to the New Gods and the Trench, like I said, the Trench, that seems like a pretty neat idea. I'm kind of disappointed to hear that that's gone away or indefinitely on hold. That shit ain't coming out. But if you were looking forward to these, unfortunately, not going to happen. It doesn't seem like it. And this whole release or restore the Snyderverse, or people are wanting them to continue that doesn't look like it's gonna. They were making a dent, but I think they're being pretty hard nosed about it. They're not gonna move forward with that. We're not gonna get any more Snyderverse, so it's probably time to just let that one go and go out with some dignity. But that's my take on it. I don't know. Tomorrow they could release a news story saying that the Snyderverse is 100% intact and these two movies are back on track. I have no idea. You never know with these fucking movies, especially with Warner Brothers and DC, man. They're just all over the place now, which I guess everybody kind of is. But once again, if you're looking forward to those two movies, or the Trench horror movie, that just sounds like an interesting idea, a horror movie and a comic book movie. Unfortunately, going to be disappointed they're not coming anymore. So Sorry about it. We get Aquaman 2, though, for whatever that's worth. Now moving from one DC property to another, and not just any other DC property, but another hashtag too. We had Release the Snyder Cut and now Restore the Snyderverse, but there's also Release the Ayer Cut. And apparently David Ayer is still holding on to hope that his original cut that he supposedly has of the Suicide Squad will finally release. In a new interview with EW, Ayer talks about why he still supports an Ayer cut of his superhero film and why he thinks WB should listen to the fans once again for Suicide Squad. For those not aware, after the release of Batman vs. Superman, WB became worried that the terrible critical response and middling box office might be a sign that fans were hoping for something a bit more fun and colorful in their superhero films. So this seemingly affected the final cut of David Ayer's film, Suicide Squad. From reports by the director's own admission, WB looked at Ayer's final cut of the film and decided to bring in a trailer-cutting company to do a final edit on Suicide Squad. What was then released to fans is a pop music-filled, neon-colored, quippy mess that made a lot of money, but got some of the worst reviews of all of the DC films, except for Justice League. Now, with a seemingly successful Zack Snyder's Justice League, David Ayer thinks WB could please the fans by allowing him to release his original version of the film, which he admits is a darker drama than what was released in theaters, and no, he doesn't think it'll take away from James Gunn's upcoming rebootquel, that's what they're calling it, a rebootquel, The Suicide Squad. I think the studios see now that there can be canon, there can be non-canon. The fans just want to touch it, Ayer said. They love the characters, they just want to spend more time with it. And people are way more sophisticated about how movies are made and want to be participants in the journey. There's room for different things, different versions, different assets being shared with the audience. I think it just helps strengthen the community. But absolute credit to Warner Brothers for supporting Zack and having the courage to explore that. He added, I get it, it's a business, it's frustrating because I made a really heartfelt drama and it got ripped to pieces and they tried to turn it into Deadpool, which it just wasn't supposed to be. And then you take the hit, you're the captain of the ship, my name was on it. Even though it didn't represent what I actually made, I would take all the bullets and be a good soldier. I made an amazing movie. It's an amazing movie. It just scared the shit out of executives. Of course, it doesn't appear that WB is going to give Ayer the power to release his version of the film because CEO Ann Sarnoff quashed any hope of the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad coming to HBO Max by simply saying, we won't be developing the Ayer cut. But hey, as the Snyder Cut fans will say time and time again, WB was pretty dead set on not releasing Zack Snyder's Justice League, but the studio eventually relented. You know, I don't see a problem. Well, why not just put it out? It's already done. And this is a bit of a somewhat of a different situation than Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack Snyder's Justice League wasn't complete. It was not done. My understanding is he has a cut of this film. It is done. He has it on a laptop, like his final edit of it. I'm assuming special effects, all that are done. I don't know, but I've been led to believe in what I've read over the years that this movie is done. There's a cut done, just like copy and paste. You know, you don't have to put any extra money into it except for maybe marketing, which, what could it hurt? Put it out there. If they were going to continue on with this universe, I could understand it, but they're not. They're getting away from this because this is part of the Snyderverse. They're getting away from that universe. Why not just release the damn thing? He's right. People want to see. People are aware of it. They just want to see it. They understand it's not canon. Just put it out there. Put it out there. Put a thing at the very beginning saying this is not, canon. This is not representative of the. Even if you want to be like it's not representative of the final version that's out there, or whatever. That would be the 2016 version. Whatever. Just let us see it. What does it matter? I mean, at least you'll get people to shut up. I mean, David Ayer, he's If you'd asked me before last year's The Tax Collector, I would have said he's kind of 50-50 with me. I haven't hated anything he's had because his movies have kind of been like this with, he's made some great ones like Fury, but then he also made The Suicide Squad. But, he claimed that wasn't, he made that movie, but that was not the version we got. And as we saw through the Snyder Cut and many other films, movies come together in the editing room. You can totally change a movie's tone, just everything in the editing bay. So according to him, that's what happened here. So let him release it. Just put it out there. It's free money for you. You would gain at least some subscribers by just throwing it on just throw what he's got onto HBO Max, put a disclaimer at the beginning, and be done with it. I don't get why not. I don't think anybody's going to be confused and think, oh, that's the one. I think when most people see director's cut or whatever you want to call, they understand that this is an extra special version of it. This isn't necessarily the one that represents if you're in a universe where that universe is going. Fuck it. They have already said that they are done with the Snyderverse. They're not doing any more of them. What is it going to hurt? Especially if the fucking movie's done. I really don't get that because, like I said, he claims to have this film. He has it like on a laptop is what he said. Put it out there. I don't get why they want. It sounds like when it comes to anything Snyderverse, which is what we're calling it now, I guess, some of the people at WB are just like hard-nosed. They're just like against it 100%. They refuse to release anything, refuse to give it anything at all. This Snyder Cut thing was just because it was like an overwhelming outcry for it. And yeah, they gave it a lot of money, but you ain't got to give this guy money. You just say, here you go. I mean, there might be a little bit of money that goes into it, but not like $70 million like they did with the Snyder Cut. I would get that. If he was saying, oh, I need, 50, 60, 70 million dollars to finish it, yeah, I could get them being like, no, not for Suicide Squad, no. I mean, the only other thing I could see is maybe possibly having confusion with the Suicide Squad that James Gunn's making right now that comes out later this year. Why not just go ahead and put it out now? Just put a big thing at the beginning explaining, basically the situation. And I don't think people will be too confused about it. I mean, that's the only thing I could see why they wouldn't want to release this thing, because there's another movie that they're doing called The Suicide Squad with some of the same characters. At least Harley Quinn's in it. I don't know if... and Captain Boomerang or whatever his name is, he's in it. Jai Courtney. But everybody else it's all new characters and stuff. So just, put it out there with a disclaimer in the beginning. Why the hell not? You're looking at free money, or at least free subscriptions, which is money, and that's what you guys are after. This just seems kind of dumb to me. I do, because if nothing else, I want to see what he's got. He's been proclaiming for all this time, kind of like the guy who made Fantastic Four in 2015. He claims he's got a much better cut out there, and it was they butchered his film. Let these people release these movies on these streaming services. I mean, it's out there. It's common knowledge that supposedly these other cuts exist. Let them release them, and then see if the fans say, oh, no, that sucks. That still sucks. It's bad, or it's worse, or it's, that doesn't really do anything. No movement. Just let them do it. And if you have that much faith in your decisions, which it was the studio's decisions to cut these things on both these films, you should have, that kind of, you should believe in your decision even after making it. And you made the decision to make these cuts to these movies. Stand by those decisions. Put the other one out there and say, see, it's not better. Our idea was better. But I think that that's part of it too. I think they're scared that people will like it more. And that's going to kind of put a spotlight on them that, hey, you fucked up with Justice League, you fucked up with Suicide Squad, and it's not the same company, but like with something like with Fantastic Four, you fucked up with that. People are going to start pointing the finger at studios a lot more, saying, man, you guys just get your noses out of it, let the creative people do their thing, and be creative. So from there, we leave comic book universes behind, and we jump into monster universes, because that is all the rage right now, especially with Godzilla vs. Kong recently coming out and doing gangbusters around the world. And that is exactly who we're going to be talking about right now, with a little tidbit that isn't the end of the world, but I thought it was kind of interesting and wanted to talk about it for a minute. Of course, I am talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, as I said. And apparently, while speaking with Collider, Godzilla vs. Kong director Adam Wingard gave some slightly contradictory statements regarding an aborted post-credits scene. According to Wingard, the film came very close to having one, but then they reworked it a bit and put it in the actual body of the film. He doesn't specify what the scene is exactly, but he first stresses that it was not intended to set up the next movie, as so many post-credit scenes do nowadays. We actually did shoot a post-credit scene, but we ended up using it in the movie because we shot it while we were making the film. We realized we needed a scene at the end of the movie, Wingard said. We had this footage, and we were like, wait a minute, if we actually just change this thing about this footage we originally shot for the post-credit thing, we can actually use it in the movie, and it's really effective. We kind of just sacrificed our post-credit scene, which makes sense because honestly, it's not even like the post-credit scene is teeing up anything specific. It wasn't like saying this is definitively where the MonsterVerse is going next. But then, weirdly enough, Wingard then contradicted himself by saying the next post-credits scene actually would have set a new movie up, but there was some concern about backing the MonsterVerse into a corner. Well, I take that back, he said. It would have done something, but it would have backed us into a corner, said the filmmaker. I think the MonsterVerse is at a crossroads where audiences need to vote if they want to see another one of these films before they continue. I think that's really a really healthy thing. We've gone through a decade or so of the rise of the universe movies, the versus movies. Obviously, Marvel does it best, but at the end of the day, I don't think these movies should imitate Marvel necessarily. They should be their own thing. So I think it's better not to back ourselves into a corner to a certain degree. It makes sense that we don't have a post-credit scene. I agree. I think he's right. They don't need one because they have been they were setting up a universe to a degree with this MonsterVerse movies, at least with the King of the Monsters, but the movies were never focused on the next movie. It wasn't like the Marvel movies or even the DC movies to a degree. And I mean, look at the Universal's Dark Universe. It's like the movies have started, and Marvel as well, they're getting there. Their movies are starting to become more about the next movie, about setting things up for a universe, and not as much about the actual movie that you're watching right then. That's one thing I can say the MonsterVerse has not been doing. They've had post-credit scenes on some of their other films that have alluded to what's to come next, and those build. But if you look at like the original 2014 Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, and even King of the Monsters, those movies, regardless if you like them or not, and I like some of them and I didn't like some, but even the ones I didn't like, I will say that they were focused on that movie, not building a universe. And that should always be the focus, is the movie you're in now. Look at what was it, The Mummy, which was the beginning of the Dark Universe. That thing was all about a universe. They were trying to build a universe in one movie. And that's just not how it works. They don't need to be concerned with the next movie. You need to concern yourself with the movie you're making now. And I think he's got a good point, that they clearly don't have a clear vision of where this movie is going next, where this franchise is going next. And with all the money that the Godzilla vs. Kong has made, I'm sure it's going somewhere. But they don't know where, so why back yourself into a corner? Why put something out there that you might have to retcon down the line or deal with? It doesn't need a post-credit scene just because all the Marvel movies have had them, and now all these other movies have started having. By the way, Marvel was not the first one to have post-credit scenes. Post-credit scenes go way back. I mean, hell, Masters of the fucking Universe, the He-Man movie back in the 80s, had a post-credit scene. Post-credit scenes are not anything new. Marvel just kind of made it to where they're expected in these big-budget movies. Because of Marvel, I think people do sit in theaters through the credits wondering, is there going to be a post-credit scene? That's when you see all the phones flip up. People are Googling, is there a post-credit scene in X movie? If you go to the theaters. I see it all the time. Hell, I do it. But no, you don't have to have one. And I think they're saying, he contradicted himself. I don't think that's the case. I think that they probably shot a fairly vague scene that could possibly go somewhere, but they could probably tweak it. So he was saying it may have backed us into a corner depending on what we did with it. But I think that's great. I thought the fact that it didn't have a post-credit scene was somewhat refreshing, which is weird because years ago having a post-credit scene was refreshing. You don't have to have a post-credit scene. It does not make your movie any less or more. And just throwing one in there because is not the right way. Throwing one in there like Kong Skull Island had a great post-credit scene. The thing with Monarch and showing Godzilla and all that, that was fantastic. Because when Kong Skull Island came out, some people weren't 100% sure, especially like people just, your average moviegoer, wasn't 100% sure or didn't know that this took place in that same universe. So that was kind of, that was like, whoa, holy shit, that's fucking Godzilla on that wall. That's a mural of Godzilla. So I thought that was pretty cool. The post-credit scene for, what was it, King of the Monsters, I remember it was all right, but I didn't really care for King of the Monsters, but either way. No, it didn't need one, and I think that this is, a good call on his behalf, and I don't think he should be tore up about it. I do remember when this movie came out last week, a lot of people were talking about, why is there no post-credit scene? What's going on? Why is there no post-credit scene? There's no post-credit scene because they didn't have a fucking post-credit scene. They didn't have something to say. Why put something in there just to have it in there? Then you end up with some of these, because there have been Marvel movies that they put a post-credit scene in that really had no purpose, no point. It was there, and you're like, what is this shit? I mean, look at Shazam, I believe it was. They had a post-credit scene in that apparently is going to have nothing to do with the sequel. Well, a lot of people are speculating the worm thing is going to have nothing to do with the sequel. And now people that are real hardcore into that comic are going to go into the sequel, and that little worm guy's not going to be there, and they're going to be like, where's my worm? They backed themselves into a corner. They clearly decided to go a different direction. I don't know if they're going to deal with that or not, but it was a thing. So it's not going to be in the sequel, and there's going to be some people that are going to be asking, where's my little worm guy? I don't know his name clearly. But yeah, this, like I said, this was just a little story. I thought it was just kind of a neat little insight from this director. And Adam Wingard, he seems like he knows what he's doing. He's made some pretty good films up to this point. So, I mean, he had one, I haven't seen it, Death Note, I believe it was. It was a doozy from what I understand, but all of his other films have been pretty good. So I'm excited to see what this guy does next, and I'm putting some faith in his decision, and his decision was to not have a post-credit scene. And I'm going to go with him and say, you know what? That was his decision to make, and I support that. Now, speaking of Adam Wingard and Godzilla vs. Kong and just the MonsterVerse overall and where those movies are going to go, he was speaking with EW about where he does think, whether he's involved or not, the MonsterVerse should go after being in charge of what is probably going to end up being the most popular and financially viable of all the series or movies in that series up to this point. And he was talking about, he said, speaking to EW, Adam Wingard talked about his idea for the direction Legendary Pictures should move into if there's another MonsterVerse film after Godzilla vs. Kong. And if there is, the filmmaker believes the next feature should almost completely ditch the human element and focus entirely on the big bad monsters. I think Godzilla vs. Kong is the first time that we've really truly been able to have full sequences where the film leaves the humans and stays with the monsters, just like any other character, said the filmmaker. That's a big breakthrough, VFX-wise and even story-wise. If there's another MonsterVerse movie, in my opinion, it should be the first full-on monster film. I would say 30% humans, the rest monsters, basically flipping the formula of what a lot of these movies generally are. I think people are ready for it. I'm down. I'm ready for it. I think that would be great because let's be real, the human characters, and you have some people later in this article, it's just more opinionated. It has the writer saying that, removing the human element is removing the heart and soul of the film. I disagree. I feel like the heart and soul, because he also said humans will be there, it'd be 30%, but I disagree with, like, in the case of, like, Kong or Godzilla versus Kong, I feel like the heart and soul of that movie was Kong and the little girl. If there was a human involved that was the heart and soul, it was the little girl that was Kong's friend. But Kong was really the heart and soul of that. Godzilla, to a degree in the end, not to spoil anything, not going there, but King Kong was the heart and soul, and he really was a full-fledged, fleshed-out character. And after seeing that movie, I was actually thinking this before seeing this article. I think they could start doing away with the human characters more and more. Are we going to get one where it's like 100% monsters? No, probably not. And I think you got to have humans to kind of, say things to us, the viewers, and take us on that journey so we can see it from their view. But I'd be down with seeing one that was much more monsters, because that's what Kong or Godzilla vs. Kong was. It was probably the most monster-on-monster movie, monster-focused movie rather, out of this series thus far. It had less for the humans to do in this one than any of the other monster-type movies. Really, any monster movies for the most part. There might be one out there somewhere, but especially mainstream monster movies. I think this is a great idea, and with the right story, it could definitely work. It worked in Godzilla vs. Kong. The best parts of this movie were the parts with the monsters, and not just because it was really cool action, but because they were interesting characters. Kong was a very relatable, interesting character that had some backstory. They told a very visual story there. They had humans there spouting stuff out every now and then, but a lot of what they were saying, I didn't really need. Some of it maybe, but especially once they got to, not to spoil it, the place that they go in that movie, a lot of that stuff was visually told to us, even though some of it was being spewed out of humans' mouths here or there. I didn't need that. That story was being told to me through Kong and his interactions with this place that they go. And even in later on in the film with Godzilla, never speaks a line of dialogue, either of them, of course, but you knew what he was thinking. You got what was going on there through body language, the great special effects, and just the storytelling itself. And a lot of that is probably attributed to Adam Wingard and his directing style. He just did a really good job with that movie. So yeah, I'm ready for it, and I think a lot of people would be. If you had taken out more of the human element out of Kong vs. Godzilla, it would have just made the movie even better. Not that, I think that the humans have a place to play in this universe and in those movies. You don't have to totally remove them, but I think that we could start focusing more on the monsters, and I think that studios are kind of afraid to do that. Even writers are afraid to do it because they wonder, how do you write for a character that does not really speak? So, I think maybe this movie is putting that out there and maybe reassuring people a bit that, yes, you can do this. For me, at least, it was, and some of the people I've spoken with, they say, yeah, that's definitely absolutely the case. Kong was the heart and soul. This person who put their opinion at the end saying removing the humans is removing the heart and soul. What MonsterVerse are you watching? I mean, and none of, maybe 2014's Godzilla, because that was a more thought-provoking film for the most part. Beyond that one, Kong Skull Island and King of the Monsters and this one, the humans are not the heart and soul of that movie. You're not following the humans in that movie. There's no heart and soul there as far as the humans are concerned. You take those humans out, you're not losing the heart and soul of the movie. Kong Skull Island, maybe just a bit, not even the heart and soul, but you're missing the humans. We followed the humans a bit more than that, but I mean, really? Heart and soul of the humans? Get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? The humans have been the weakest parts in these movies since their inception. Like I said, the only one that had strongish human characters was the first Godzilla movie, because it did mainly focus very much so on the humans, and the monsters were really, I mean, probably only 15 to 20% of that film was the monsters, if that much. You didn't see Godzilla much in that movie until the end of the movie. So, but me, myself, I think that this is a great idea. I think that they should definitely move forward with this, and I think that he's got a great idea here, and they need to listen to this guy, because he's all of his movies, with the exception of Death Note, which I haven't seen myself, I'm just going off what people are saying, all his movies have been pretty damn entertaining so far. So, as I said in a previous story about Wingard, I think people should start to listen to him, and he did prove with this film that, yeah, we could get a movie that's much more focused on those monsters, as long as they don't make them just dumb brutes, and they do like they did with Kong and even Godzilla in this one. But what do you guys think? Do you think that a more heavily focused MonsterVerse movie could work? Do you think less humans? I mean, I hear that from pretty much everybody. Oh, that movie was really fun. The weakest part was the humans. Seems like a fucking no-brainer to me, I'm just saying, but who the hell am I? I don't make movies. I just review them. Now, once again, speaking of Adam Wingard, I promise this is the last Adam Wingard story we've got this week, but the guy's just all over the place with the success of King or Godzilla versus Kong. So he's kind of got his pick of what he wants to do next, and it seems like he's made that decision. Warner Brothers has been sitting on the film rights to cult cartoon series Thundercats for over a decade, and it looks like there's finally movement on their long in development feature film. Debuting in 1985, the sci-fi fantasy cartoon focused on a group of cat-like humanoids that had adventures on an alien planet called Third Earth. The original run of the show had a very unique look, as the animation was handled by a studio in Japan and was essentially an anime written by Americans. The studio has decided to give Godzilla vs. Kong director Adam Wingard a crack at making the feature film, as reported by Deadline. Wingard is attached to direct and will rewrite an existing script from David Cogshaw with his writing partner Simon Barrett. However, Thundercats won't be a live-action adaptation, as they'll be instead mixing traditional animation with CGI. This is a long time coming, as other cartoons from the same era, such as Transformers, G.I. Joe, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, have already been mined as studio blockbusters. Deadline also spoke with the filmmaker in a separate interview where he revealed how he approached Warner Brothers about making Thundercats after delivering Godzilla vs. Kong. I'm in a place where Godzilla vs. Kong has gone well with Warner Brothers. They loved the movie as we were wrapping it. He said, "I heard there was a Thundercats script out there, and it happened to be set up with some of my producers on Death Note." Well, good thing that Death Note thing is coming, going to do some positive stuff for him, apparently. I asked them, I want to rewrite this script with my friend Simon Barrett. This is a huge passion thing for me. Nobody on this planet knows or has thought as much about Thundercats as I have. They gave me the reins. He continued to reveal that what attracted him to the project, I saw this as an opportunity to do a new type of fantasy sci-fi spectacle film that people have never seen before. It's got a rich mythology, the characters are fantastic, the colors. I want to do a Thundercats film that takes you back to the 80s aesthetic. I don't want to reinvent the way they look. I want them to look like the Thundercats. That's great. Oh, he's also, by the way, he's working on on the Face Off sequel that I reported on a few weeks back, or a couple of months back. So this guy's just got he's got a full slate. I was a big fan of Thundercats when I was a kid, but it's been a long time since I've actually seen the Thundercats. There you go. But it's been a long time since I've seen Thundercats, and I remember really liking it. I remember a lot of the details about it, I suppose, but I'd be down for going to see this. But the Thundercats themselves, while I was a fan, and it'd be great to go back and have like go down that nostalgia road with the show or movie or whatever. What really draws me to this and makes me happy about this is the fact that he's saying he is such a fan and this is a passion thing, and he doesn't want to change, reinvent the wheel when it comes to the Thundercats. He wants to tell more Thundercat stories and transport us back to those 80s Thundercats. I think that's great. They talked about using traditional animation and CGI. I would assume that what they're meaning there is like, you see that maybe not the characters are probably going to be traditional animation, because changing the characters to CGI seems like it would be a bit of sacrilege in these types of situations, and it doesn't sound like that's the direction he's going. But maybe like the vehicles or some of the backdrops and things, like some of the things that they interact with, maybe CGI. I see that sometimes, like with what was the one with Matt Damon, Titan AE. They did a lot of that there, where you got CGI elements with the traditional animation. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the direction that he's going with this and what he's talking about. But we don't have a lot here. He's apparently working on the script now. He said it was after he got the reins, or had them handed over to him after Godzilla vs. Kong came out. So that was just a week or two ago. So it's still fresh. He's working on a script. But I got, like I said in the previous two stories concerning Wingard, I got some faith in the guy. He's making some real good moves. And just having passion for something and truly loving it. And he's already shown that the guy knows how to make a film. And he clearly doesn't want to make it live action, because I feel like a lot of live action adaptations of of previously animated shows or movies or whatever. A lot of times they're just doing it just to do it. They're just doing live action so they can say, "Hey, we did live action." There's no point to it. Here, what he wants to do is he wants to tell Thundercats stories. He wants to make a Thundercats movie, and he's making it animated. And I think that's really cool because, we've heard for 20 years, you've seen the mock-ups and stuff like Brad Pitt as Lionor. I think his name is Lionor, some whatever, the main character, and things like that. People have been wanting this thing, live action or otherwise, for decades now, and it sounds like we're finally going to get it. And thankfully, we're going to get it from somebody who's not just wanting to kind of get a cash grab. We're going to get it from someone who truly does love the Thundercats. There's another story I read concerning this where he said he wrote a 270-page script back in the day for a Thundercats movie, and when he was a kid and got made fun of and everything. So I think that's kind of funny because all those kids that made fun of him now, or back then, he should look all them kids up now and be like, hey, remember that time you made fun of my Thundercats script? Fuck you. What are you, like, Bill in accounting now? I make motherfucking movies, bitch. I would totally do that. But you know what? I'm petty as fuck. Anyway, if you're a Thundercats fan, you got some good shit coming your way. Probably, I don't know if it's going to be hand-drawn or not, but at some time in the future, the Thundercats are finally coming back. Now for my final story of the night, we're going to be looking at Matt Reeves of the Batman fame. Well, hopefully fame. It's not out yet, but he's definitely on the map for making this movie because there's been all kinds of rumors and everything. But apparently Matt Reeves has his eye on his next project, and it's a remake. And not only is it a remake, it's a remake of a movie that came out less than a year ago. I'm talking about the English language remake of the Russian film Sputnik, a movie I actually reviewed this year. Was it this year? No, it was last year. It's been not quite a year ago, I believe it was. But with the title, Deadline reports that Matt Reeves' 6th in Idaho banner is teaming up with Village Roadshow and XYZ Films to make an English language remake of the Russian 2020 horror hit Sputnik. The original Sputnik is set in the Soviet Union in the 1980s at the height of the Cold War and follows a controversial young doctor who is summoned to a secluded research facility to examine a cosmonaut who returned to Earth with an alien parasite inside of him. This might be among the quickest periods for an English language remake of a popular international film to get started in Hollywood. It's been less than a year since Sputnik has released in spring 2020, but in this case, the Sputnik remake seems as much a case of outreach to Western audiences from the original Russian producers who are attached to the remake as well. The original film was directed by Igor, I'm going to butcher this, Abramenko, and produced by Vodorod Pictures, Art Pictures Studio, and Hype Film, all three of which are involved with the remake as well. Mikhail Verbul, Alexander Andrushenko are producing for Vodorod, and some other people's names that I will butcher are also included on the producer level. Then you have big names like the Batman filmmaker Matt Reeves, who is producing the film alongside Adam Kessin and Ravi Koren for 6th in Idaho. At the very least, Reeves' involvement might bring more eyes to the film that left few waves outside of the horror community. We believe Sputnik will translate well to English-speaking audiences and continue to captivate moviegoers worldwide with its thrilling story. We are eager to begin production and believe we have some of the best partners in the industry to reimagine Igor's original vision while staying true to the film's journey, said Jillian Affelbaum, Village Roadshow Pictures Executive Vice President of Feature Film. Sputnik was the first big Russian release to go straight to digital platforms during the lockdown. I think this could be a good thing. Remakes are kind of, or English language remakes of foreign films are kind of a hit and miss thing. People usually give them a lot of hate, especially when it comes like from the Asian market. You see it a lot there when you see Asian films that were really popular and then they get remade here in the States. People give them a lot of shit, and a lot of times they're not as good. But then you end up with something like The Ring that, in my opinion, was superior to the original version that came out. Nothing against Ringu, but I just thought the first one, not the second one was terrible. But the first Ring, Gore Verbinski's The Ring, was a really good film, very well made, and a bit more coherent than the original Ringu. But that may be also based on Japanese ideologies and stuff like that, and how they that may be a cultural thing. But that all aside, I think because Russian culture it's a Western culture, so it is similar to our own. And having watched the original Sputnik and reviewing it, I can say that I could see this as I could see them remaking this. Either I don't really know if there's a reason for it. I will say that as far as the movie, I thought the movie was really entertaining. I really did enjoy it. The ending kind of went into some territory that I didn't love. I didn't hate it, but the ending was a bit of a wet noodle for me. It kind of it was really strong, and then when it got to the ending, it kind of just it limped out a bit. It kind of not flatlined, but it stopped. It was on a real good trajectory this way, and then it kind of just I'm gonna just kind of bring it down a little bit. Never went down, but it kind of flattened out a bit. Didn't hate it, as I said. It was fine, but they could have really ended it on a bang, and instead we got kind of more of a whimper. I am afraid that, because it was kind of a smaller scale thriller, and I'm afraid that if they go and remake it, it's got a lot of the original people involved, so that makes me have a little bit more faith in it, but I'm afraid they're going to try and make it big budget American movie, or something like that, big explosion fist. You take our movie and make it big explosions, very big movie, big Hollywood summer blockbuster. I'm afraid they're going to go for that whole thing. Sorry about that terrible accent there, but they don't need to, if they retain the feeling and that whole horror thriller terror aspect of the original film, I'd be down with this. That's cool. I mean, you're getting the story out to a wider audience when you have a remake in a different language. It's not the remake is not what offends me. It's what they do with the remake, whether it's going to be worth remaking or not. This is really quick, though, because, I know that the original movie is available here in America with subtitles and even dubs. So you can watch an English language version of the movie, and it's not like culturally Russia is that much different than us. Their filmmaking style is different than ours in a lot of cases, but I will say Sputnik is very much in line with American filmmaking. There is definitely a style to Russian filmmaking a lot of the times that you see in a lot of movies, that they have some cultural differences in their filmmaking style and how it's a bit more animated and cartoony at times, and there's some tropes that are very specific to that region that don't always translate here as much. We understand them. It's not like you don't understand it, but you're just kind of like, why does it happen? Especially with like love and relationships and things like that. Man, over in Russia, it's like, bam, you like meet a woman. If you're a guy, you meet a woman, you're married in the next scene. I mean, that's your long lost love right there. And vice versa, but that's kind of a running joke with those films. But Sputnik, I will say, was not like that. It was very much more a grounded, realistic take, and it was much more in line with the type of cinema that America or U.S. citizens are used to seeing. So I think that taking this film and having a more or less beat-for-beat remake, it could work. And if that opens the film up, they keep that same... they keep the spirit of the original, and they just bring it over here so more people can be, subject to this really interesting story, and maybe just heighten that ending up just a touch. If you get a little bit of something extra, but beyond not too much, don't go too far. But if they did that, I think that this could be good, or it could be a fucking disaster. But having so many of the original people involved really does give me a bit of hope, because typically people from the original won't be involved if they think you're going to butcher what they made originally, Or they could all just be money hungry and say, hey, we see a lot of money to be made here. We don't really give a fuck about the creative process. We just want them dividends. So could be that. Who knows? We'll find out. It's not been shot, cast, or anything as of yet, but it's coming. And Matt Reeves is apparently involved in it somehow. And I think Matt Reeves is a really good director. He's made some really good films. I don't know if he's really made a bad film. He's one of those directors that's pretty selective for what he makes, but he does make some really interesting, exciting movies. So much like Adam Wingard we were talking about earlier, I kind of, if Reeves is involved, I think that there is something there. So we'll see where it goes. But if you're a fan of Sputnik, might be getting an alternate version of it coming up soon. If you haven't seen Sputnik, or if the fact that it is in another language, because I know some people don't like watching subtitles or dubs, if you haven't seen it, I would suggest checking it out. It is an entertaining flick, and it's there's some good. The dub of it, from what I remember, is actually pretty good too. It's not a terrible dub by any means, but hell, read the subtitles. But if that's just, you just refuse to do that and you're not going to do that, you're going to have an opportunity to be subject to this story at some point in the future. So that'll do it for the news this week. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Nothing groundbreaking this week by any means, but some interesting little stories here or there. I do want to take a look at this week's coming releases. Per usual, there's not much coming out. Everything's trying to get out of the way of Godzilla vs. Kong and the next big one in line, which would be Mortal Kombat. But that's not this week. That's in about 2 weeks, which, by the way, I didn't do a story about it because there's not really much to report on, but Mortal Kombat has been delayed by 1 week. Apparently to get out of Kong and Godzilla's way just a bit, give it a little bit more breathing room. That was their reasoning for it. So I don't think anything's wrong. I don't think anything's, it doesn't make me concerned in any way. I just think that, hey, they wanted 1 extra week to get that Godzilla and Kong money. So, because I think they probably realized that once Mortal Kombat comes out, it's going to dominate the new movie spectrum at that point, probably. But this week, as of April 6th, Tuesday, April 6th, sorry. Today, in fact, we have, the only release we've got is Dawn of the Beast, which I have actually already seen, and I have a review of it done, and that will be coming out later this week. It's scheduled for, I believe, Friday. I'll be having a review of that, so check it out there. I'm not going to comment on here because I want you to watch the review. But little known, it's actually it's part of a universe. In fact, I didn't know that until I started watching it. And I was like, wait, this takes place in, this is like the same movie, or similar to a movie I watched not long ago. Same director, same actors, same universe. So there you go. As of Friday, April 9th, we get Voyagers. Not familiar with that. Mafi, whatever that is, and Held. I'm not familiar with any of these films. So Voyagers that name seems familiar. I'm not really sure what that is. If it's I don't know. It says here it's sci-fi adventure. Neil Berger directed. Stars Colin Farrell, Ty Sheridan, okay, this is actually like a thing. Lily Rose Depp, that's Johnny Depp's kid. Not familiar with the crew of astronauts on a multi-generational mission descend into paranoia and madness, not knowing what is real or not. Okay, well, I might want to check that out. That sounds pretty cool. But it is coming out on Friday, if that sounds interesting to you, or any of the other ones that I mentioned. They'll be here Friday, so go check them out and let me know what you thought about them. So not a whole lot of new trailers out this week, but there is one I wanted to check out, and that would be for Marvel's Loki series coming soon. Myself, I am currently watching and reviewing my first TV show here on the channel, which is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. For my thoughts on that, check out my reviews. I think we just did season 3 yesterday, or day before yesterday, one or the other. But check those out to see what I think about those. That show's kind of not 100% sure about it yet. I did not see WandaVision, so I can't comment on it. But Loki, I think, is a pretty cool character, and I'm going to give this trailer a try. I haven't seen it yet, and see if I think that this one's going to be worth checking out. And if it is, I'll definitely be checking it out when it comes out. I think it's supposed to come out shortly after The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's the next one in line. But I do like Tom Hiddleston, and I do like the character of Loki. So let's check it out and see. So here we go with the first ever trailer. I think it's the first. Oh, no, this says trailer 2. Apparently there's been another one. I haven't seen it yet. But here is the newest trailer 2 of Loki. Oh, is that from Endgame?
Is.
Well, not from Endgame, like where he went when he disappeared. She had a Tesseract.
Have built quite the circus.
Timekeepers.
And I see the clowns are playing their parts to perfection.
Who are the Timekeepers?
Big metaphor guy. I love it.
Oh, it's Owen
Makes
Wilson.
You sound super smart.
I am smart.
I know.
Okay.
Okay.
I wonder if that cat is like the one in who the fuck?
Please sign to verify this is everything you've ever said.
This is absurd.
I kind of like that.
Sign this too.
What the hell?
We protect the proper flow of time.
Oh, now I like time travel
You
and
picked
time
up the
manipulation
Tesseract, breaking
shows and
reality.
movies.
I want you to help us fix it.
Oh, is that what this is going to be about? Is him going around and
Do I get a
fixing
weapon?
time? Okay, so it's coming soon.
You
I didn't know-
believe in this Loki variant?
Luckily, he believes in himself enough.
Well,
for the
time
both
travel
of us.
obviously in Endgame was a thing, but I didn't know it was like this big of a deal in the Marvel Universe.
It is adorable that you think you could possibly manipulate me.
I'm Loki, bitch.
I'm 10 steps ahead of you.
Is that Asgard? Did he go to Asgard? Well, Asgard's
You're not big on
gone.
Trust, are you?
You can trust me.
Loki, I've studied almost every moment of your entire life. You've literally stabbed people in the back like 50 times.
I'd never do it again.
All right, so yeah, that was pretty cool. It didn't tell me a whole lot, but I mean that's what I wanted of a trailer. I don't want it to spoil the whole thing for me by any means. But yeah, I like that. That was pretty neat. I didn't know that time travel, obviously in Endgame it was, but I didn't know time travel, like there was a whole time bureau or whatever in the Marvel universe. I guess it's not surprising, but I'd never heard of that. Granted, I don't follow the comic books beat for beat. Haven't followed comics period in years and years and years, but that's neat. I really do like time travel and time manipulation in movies and stuff. So, and I kind of like how quirky that seemed, and Tom Hiddleston seemed like he was, in full Loki mode. One thing interesting about this, the Loki that we all came to know and love is actually, the Loki from, I guess, well, he got taken out in the beginning of, not Endgame, Infinity War. So, this isn't that Loki, though. This is the Loki from the end of Avengers. And at that point, he was still he was the bad, he was the villain in that. So at this point, this character is still bad, give or take. Or I mean, not give or take, but more or less. Now, I don't know. He showed like some good in Thor: The Dark World, I suppose, from what I remember. But at this point, he's still bad Loki. So I do wonder, are they going to differentiate, or is this pretty much just he had an arc in all those movies leading up to Infinity War, where by that point, or really Ragnarok, I think it was, Ragnarok, where we actually liked him. But prior to that, he was the bad guy. He was the antagonist. So I do wonder if they're going to make him kind of like retro his character a bit to where he is still the bad guy, and have to have him build up, have an arc again to get him to where he's less about just him and himself, but actually a good guy or an anti-hero at least. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'll definitely give that a chance. I like the fact that it's a whole new universe. It didn't seem, besides of course Loki being included in it. It didn't seem like it was really playing off of the Marvel Cinematic Universe a lot. So I kind of like that. I like seeing that. It seems like it's going to be something new and fresh. Like with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's very MCU, that universe, the world that it's in. It's very much like the MCU. So nothing totally new there thus far. WandaVision, I heard it was pretty unique, but then it ended up being kind of MCU-ish. So I want to see where this goes. It looks pretty interesting. We'll see after I see the last 3 episodes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier if I'm really hyped for this MCU television universe. I guess it wouldn't be MCU. It would be like the Marvel, maybe the MTVU. Oh, no, MTV. But no, I think that there's some potential here from what I saw. It looked interesting. It looked like a good time. I'd definitely check it out. And see, what Loki's getting up to. I'm assuming this is how they're going to bring his character back after he got taken out in the beginning of Infinity War. So I guess Loki is still going to be in the universe after this show, perhaps. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. I don't even think anybody really knows where they're going with the MCU. I don't even think the people at Marvel know at this point. They don't seem like they have a very clear vision right now. But maybe they just haven't communicated it to us. Anywho, I really like that. It looked pretty neat. Didn't see anything that was right away, besides Loki, of course, that was recognizable. And I kind of dig that. Nothing jumped out at me as, oh, I know this, I know that. I don't need all that. I don't need a bunch of stuff to point at and say, oh, I'm familiar with that. No, it was just all fresh. And I like that. So... Loki, the show, coming out June 11th, I think it said. So probably, right after or shortly after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier is over. Definitely check it out. And if this Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV review thing goes well, maybe I'll review those shows as well. We'll find out then, and we'll all find out if it was worth the wait and if Loki is worth bringing back on June 11th. So guys, that will about do it for episode 12 of the JARcast movie podcast. Coming up this week on the channel, I do have Dawn of the Beast, as I mentioned earlier, a thriller called Voices, another thriller called The Inheritance. I am currently working on starting up the comic book movie review series, have that all put together, my first few blocked out. Haven't shot them yet. They'll be coming in a few weeks. I have all that scheduled and everything. I am currently working on some video game movie ranking videos. I guess that's the best way to call them. 3 different videos that are dealing with more than one video game movie, one of which is an actual ranking video after the ending of completion of my video game movie review series. Check that out, by the way. Those will be coming very soon. The first one was supposed to be this week, but it will actually be next week, and after those get out, then the comic book movie review series will be started, and of course I have more as well. Now, if you enjoyed this, then please check it out next week. These will be releasing every Tuesday evening. I am no longer shooting these live. They are pre-recorded and then put up just in that version. No more live streams. It was just a bit too much. I'm still doing the show, but instead of doing it live, I will be premiering these though, so a live chat can still go down at the same time that I used to shoot them live. So all the people that enjoyed coming and hanging out as I did the show in the weeks before, in the 11 episodes leading up to this one, can still come and hang out and talk about the show and with each other. I really love the community that we've built here with this show, and I enjoy talking to you guys each week. Still doing the Wednesday night game stream, so all the same people can definitely come there. But I thought maybe while I did have to end the stream because I just didn't have enough time anymore, or the live stream on Tuesdays, I could absolutely still post it then as a premiere, and we can all get in there and still talk. If you enjoyed this, as I said, check it out every week, Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock Central Time. If you prefer the audio version, it is on all major podcasting platforms. Check it out there. Just look up either Jacob Anders Reviews or JARcast or JARcast Movie Podcast. Any of those variants will do. If it is not or doesn't appear to be on your preferred podcast provider, shoot me a message either on Twitter or on YouTube and let me know, and I can definitely get it on there. I can get this audio podcast on pretty much any platform I like, but I think I've got it on all the ones that have been requested or that I think it should go on. But like I said, if it's missing from one you particularly care for, let me know. I'll definitely get it there. And as always, guys, I really appreciate all of you. Anyone who's listening to this thing, especially if you've gotten to this part, you are a champ. You are amazing. You are awesome. Check out my channel, Jacob Anders Reviews, for movie reviews, movie news, all that stuff, but especially the reviews. That is my bread and butter. Check that out. And hit the subscribe button if you feel so inclined, and if you enjoyed this. Hit the like button, all that stuff. All the likes, follows, subscriptions, and all that. You can also check me out on Twitter at RedNeville2 and see the random shit that I put up there each week, and whatever I decide that I'm going to say on there, that's real random over there. I'm on Facebook too under Jacob Anders Reviews, but I don't spend a lot of time there. Twitter is the best place to get a hold of me, Twitter or Facebook. Anywho, I will be back here next Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Central Time. Feel free to come hang out, check it out, and we'll talk about next week's news. I appreciate all of you. Thanks for listening and or watching. And, as always, stay sexy.